I'd like to call to order the City of Las Vegas Historic Preservation Commission for October 25th, 2023. Please call the roll and determine if we have a quorum.
Thank you. Chair Stodel,
Present.
Vice Chair Laramie, Commissioner Levine, Commissioner Beck,
Present.
Commissioner Hotchkiss,
Here on the phone.
Commissioner Surface,
Here.
Commissioner Cosgrove,
Here.
Commissioner Palacios, Commissioner Moody,
Present by phone.
Commissioner Perdue,
Here.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Seabrandt,
Here.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Present.
Thank you. Those on the phone, I would remind you to mute your phones when you're not speaking, please.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do, Chair.
Great, thank you. Agenda item 2 is the announcement regarding whether or not we are in compliance with the state's open meeting law.
We are in compliance.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, public comment. Comments during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Would anybody like to speak at this point? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 4. It states whether or not Chair has any announcements relative to the Historic Preservation Commission. I do not. Agenda item 5 for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference of the regular meeting of September 27th, 2023. Look for a motion to approve unless there are corrections or changes.
Motion to approve. Commissioner Cosgrove.
We have a motion. Although any comments? General public? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Hotchkiss votes aye on the phone.
Commissioner Beck is abstaining.
And the reason for the abstention?
I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Those opposed? Motion carries with the chair voting in favor. Let's move on to agenda item 6, which is 23-0542-HPC1. Final report by David Figler regarding the completion of the replacement of an original weeping mortar brick wall. Dr. Seabrandt?
Thank you, and I believe we don't have David with us today.
No, I apologize. Oh, I don't know if I have to press this on. Oh, good. David Figler was unable to get available today, so my name is Ray Lathrop, and I also live at 1302 South 6th Street.
Right.
So, we were asked to give a final presentation on the project related to our brick and mortar grant, which was replacing a wall on our property within the historic district of Jonas Park. So this is our home, 1302 South 6th Street. I took this last night where there's some sun coming in. The location of the wall that was replaced is on the south side of the property, lining the carport. So it's a little hard to see right here in this view, but I will get a closer picture. Does this work? Did it run out of batteries?
It should be just be able to.
Oh. All right, so the reason for our application and entire replacement of the wall is that at some point in time in the last year or two, it completely broke in half. So on our side here, we have a mulberry tree, and on the neighbor's side on the south, there was a very large palm tree, and we wanted to make sure to replace it in the style of the original building. You can see in this picture, the whole wall is leaning, and so this was a complete demo and rebuild. And it was really good timing because as soon as the trees were removed, the whole wall fell down. And luckily, no one was hurt, and we got everything picked up. But yes, it was like one in the first hour of work, and it went boom, and that's what happened to the wall. We were able to ensure that the wall was completely replaced as original, so you can see from these pictures that each and every brick was cut down 4 inches in order to match the original length of the bricks, which we were told are no longer manufactured. So we went with this extra step to make sure that we aligned perfectly with the original design. And we replaced the footing and everything so that it's all there. This is our neighbor's house that also is original brick and mortar. And so the final wall here looks kind of identical to the one that fell over. And in this view, you can see the wall on the far end that's perpendicular to the new wall is the original. So it looks just as close to original as possible. So this is really exciting. We'll have to landscape over here next to our driveway. But this was a really, excellent project, really helpful. We came in just at the budget of the grant. We probably paid a little bit more for the tree removal as it got a little bit more complicated, but that was not part of our grant budget and request from HPC. And so the final cost to HPC was about $5,600, and we probably put in a little bit more than that as a match. And this was just excellent to be able to utilize this fund and get the support from the city and the Historic Preservation Commission. We're just really grateful. We'd be happy to put up a sign around the project, but we haven't gotten one, kind of announcing to the neighbors how this project was funded. But we just really appreciate the support and the opportunity to, have this project completed and everyone be safe.
Questions? Please.
Commissioner Roberts, looks great. Good job.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask, this is in the front, right? This
Yeah.
is in the front yard, so it's in public view.
Yeah.
That's correct. And that is, I just want to also clarify, that is one of the requirements of the bricks and mortar grant, that it be in view of the public?
Correct.
Yeah, our Mexican petunias are a little bit in the way in this season, so that's why
Awesome.
the picture from the street is a little hard to see.
Thank you
But
very
yeah.
much.
Any other questions? Has any of the neighbors commented?
Yeah, we've had a
alert?
lot of neighborhood interest, and one thing that we've offered is to share kind of our application and the whole process to any neighbors that might be interested in pursuing this for their own property. So we'll make sure that all of our documentation is available for anyone who's applying as well. We were happy to share.
Did you have any difficulty in finding artists to do the weeping part of the mortar?
Not the weeping part, no. We actually got quotes from 3 separate masonry kind of brick concrete companies. And the only challenge was it was difficult for them to tell around the original footing if that needed to be replaced during the quote process. But because both of our homes on each side of this wall are the weeping mortar, they were able to kind of figure it out in processing the project. The real difficulty was getting someone to agree to cut the bricks down to size.
Well, I think all of that you've gone through is very helpful as we move forward with somebody else wanting to do it.
Yeah.
There's now some information, a foundation, so to speak, of what are the challenges and the opportunities with walls like this. That's great. Any further questions, comments? If not, we're all set. Payment taken care of, and
Yes.
all right.
That's awesome.
We thank you for the work and the time and the energy, and it looks great. Was there a reason? I'm sorry. One more question. Why it fell apart in that particular? Is that the tree or?
We think it was the palm tree, and in fact, our neighbor to the south has 2 palm trees on the other side in the backyard on their side, and they're also kind of stretching the brick wall too. So actually, they had some leftover cement, and they went and patched up some of those cracks too, so they wouldn't fall sooner. So that was really nice of the company. But yeah, we'll be paying attention, but I'm pretty sure it's those palm trees were placed way too close to the brick.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Again, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Let's move on next to agenda item 7, 23-0543-HPC1. Final report by Fawn Douglas regarding completion of the 100-year anniversary event at the West Side School. Dr. Seabrand?
Thank you, so Seagrant, for the record. So this occurred on September 30th, and this commission provided New Woo Art, Fawn Douglas representing New Woo Art, with a contract to participate in the parade and event at the school celebrating its 100-year anniversary.
Great. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much. And first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of the individual members of the Historic Preservation Commission for assisting to fund this really amazing event, the Centennial of the Historic West Side School, that took place on September 30th, 2023. From the support of the Historic Preservation Commission, I was able to work with cultural consultation, event planning, and working on the land acknowledgement plaque, proofing, editing, doing due diligence with the Las Vegas Paiute tribe and attending monthly meetings with the tribal council and tribal members and updating them about the process of working on, for this parade. And this is a really amazing parade. Of course, it only happens every 100 years, or maybe there'll be another one in 25 years. But it was really a good experience for me, and I believe it was a good experience for others too, to learn more about Native American culture here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I did several, administrative hours with this and organizing and contracting dance groups. We had the Capuli Tlatelolco, which is a Danza Azteca group that performed with us. The Nuwu Winumiga, which translates to Southern Paiutes Dancing. It's a youth group. As well as the bird singers and dancers from the Chemehuevi, which are also Paiute. We had a number of dancers that were joining us and representing, because it is not just our Native American community or specifically Southern Paiutes that were amongst the first students of the historic West Side School. It was many other cultures. In retrospect, I almost wish we could have made this a more multicultural event, but of course we're all pressed for times, and we had goals of specificities, for this parade. Let me see. One of the highlights of this was really the ceremonial protocols training through our cultural fluency workshop, which was held right here in the City Hall amongst some of the employees, the festival goers, and the people who have been organizing with this event. And I believe that more things, educational opportunities are needed here in our city, so that we have a better understanding of all of these different cultures that are here in this beautiful city. And during this this historic West Side Centennial Parade was also the celebration. It was a celebration and ceremony that was physically at the school. And during that, I did some speaking. I did an opening welcome for our group. And for the land acknowledgement, towards the end, instead of myself reading it as planned, our chairwoman of the Las Vegas Paiute tribe wanted to do that honor. So of course I yielded to her. So it was really amazing to have our representation, the head of the tribe, as well as another council member, Marla Pete, that were there on stage to read the land acknowledgement. Between each of the dances, I provided educational words about the dances and what people were seeing. So it wasn't just like, all right, here's some beautiful dances, but what do they mean? What's the significance behind it? So in keeping with, what this school is about education, I wanted to make sure that we were giving that. I was able to also stage the groups for photos with participants, and being an ambassador not only of Nuwu Art, but also an ambassador of the city in this amazing event. Because there's importance in knowledge sharing. There's importance of, being able to share our culture and for other people to understand who we are, what we're doing, and that we're still here. We're still here. We're not a part of the past. We certainly have a deep history here in Southern Nevada, but we're also a part of the present. And it was really amazing to see so many people that were engaged with it and asking questions and wanting to know more about our cultures, ceremonies, and wanting to, like, well, when else can we see you dancing? When else are these things going to be happening? And in fact, for this, I didn't plan on performing at first, but then I just felt very moved because my grandmother and other relatives were amongst the first students of the historic West Side School. And the Nuwu Wanumika dancers, there's at least 5 of them whose either father, grandfather, grandmother, parents had attended the school. And it was really amazing for Councilwoman, Las Vegas Paiute Councilwoman Alfreda Mitri to even share records from the Bureau of Indian Affairs that shows the roster of our relatives that attended the school. And that was a really proud moment for me to also share, with the historic preservation team during the parade meetings. Let me see, choir. Yes, and so just thinking about the outcomes of the West Side, the Centennial Parade, and the ceremony, and all the questions we got asked, I cannot express enough the importance of this cultural sharing, and thanking you all again, for even supporting an endeavor like this, and for our cultures and our communities to be heard and seen. And I hope that we can continue these interactions into the future. In fact, the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe's Snow Mountain Powwow takes place annually, and we just celebrated our 31st annual. 32nd is coming up next year. And I would very much like for the Historic Preservation Commission to be a support of that as well, because when people are asking, where do we see these dances? Where do we see, get to learn more about Native culture? Well, come to the powwow. It's public, and even on this past one, we had a number of Arts Commission members and other city employees that attended, some for the first time. And so we hope to, I hope to continue to be a bridge, for the Historic Preservation Commission and for the city of Las Vegas. And I welcome any questions about the centennial event.
Thank you for all the work and time and effort and passion that you put into this. I did have one question. You mentioned that there are actual records with names of the human beings that attended the West Side School.
Yes, that is correct.
And I was wondering if you could make that available to Dr. Seabrandt, so the city also has a copy of those records, or direct the city to a website or a location, because that's really important information, as the state of Nevada took an annual census of each school, and the census was done in order for the school to, or the school district to receive funding. So, and like it is today, they take a census, but in those days, it was really important to get that. But those censuses, for the plural there, were destroyed. And so we don't have the records. So if you have found some records that indicate at least that would give us some clue as to the Southern Paiutes at the West Side School, that would be fantastic. I mean, that was really could be a gold mine. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll ask Councilwoman Alfreda Mitri because she sent me just a copy on her phone, like, oh, here's this record I have. But she has that record, so I can get a better scan of that to submit to the Historic Preservation Commission, and I'll get in touch with Diane Seabrandt to get that shared. But it is a fascinating document, even one that shows, attendees for the Las Vegas Grammar School with, I think, K.O. Knutson was the principal at the time.
Okay, well, that's great. That's good information. Any other questions, comments?
One here. Commissioner Roberts, for the record. I had every intention to attend, and I unfortunately was not able to. I wanted to know if there was photos or videos or somewhere that I could see the happenings of the event. Were they recorded, I presume, or?
Absolutely. I believe the committee had sourced maybe 3 or more photographers for the event. And because this was part of history and history in the making, some of those meetings were also documented I think we could lean on Diane for, I guess, I haven't seen the final photographs. I have some photos just from, family and such, but we certainly have some high-res images from the team.
Okay. Was there going to be like a presentation or a source on the city website maybe for that, or?
Stephen, for the record, so this part was funded by the HPC. The overall parade and event was funded by the Centennial Commission.
Okay.
So there will be a report at the November 27th meeting. Sorry, I can't remember the date of the meeting, for the Centennial Commission, and they will be, communication should be able to provide links for all those images.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Great. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Let's move on to agenda item 8, 23-0544-HPC1, discussion for possible action regarding approval of the first draft of the historic context and reconnaissance level survey of historic resources dating from 1946 to 1982 in the Twin Lakes area, generally bounded by Vegas Drive, North Rancho Drive, North Decatur Boulevard, and West Bonanza. And just a quick reminder, we'll hope that the commissioners have completed their review of this draft and be ready to provide some comments. This will be back for a final report on January 24th of next year. So we have some time, but please send your comments in to Dr. Seabrandt and or at this moment. So first, Dr. Seabrandt.
Stephen, for the record, you covered everything, Chairman Stodel. So yes, but don't wait until January 24th for sending your comments, because these comments need to go back to the consultant so that they can go over the report and make the required and necessary changes. So give everybody I'll give everybody a week to make sure you get all those comments to me, but the sooner the better. We'd like everything back by Monday if possible. Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to be a little obnoxious. We've got about 600 pages of reports that are on this thing, and I'm not sure that I can get all of this done by next Monday. I think let's adhere to the request of Dr. Seabrandt, and it's really important that we get specifically the ones that we have funded and are under our responsibility. All the reports are important, but the ones that that are coming through and we have to say yes or yay or nay on, let's get those comments in as quickly as we can to Dr. Seabrandt, because she's got a whole bunch of other challenges and things that she's got to deal with, including the other 600 pages of documents. So with that obnoxious comment on the chair's part, turn it over to Courtney Mooney.
Hello, good afternoon, Chair, Commission, and staff. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, I'm Courtney Mooney. I'm with Northwind Resource Consulting, and the city asked us to perform a reconnaissance level survey of 1,564 historic age properties located within the Twin Lakes area. The purpose was to identify any properties that may be potentially eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places and or the city's historic property register, and to determine if the study area could constitute a district or a couple of districts. We completed the survey of the project area in July of 2023. The buildings were photographed, and photo directions, addresses, exterior building materials, building height, architectural style and type, and current use of the property were recorded. Archival research was conducted at UNLV Special Collections Library on the initial development of the Twin Lakes area and the influence that federal housing policy and construction trends had on suburban growth of Northwest Las Vegas during that post-war period. Additional research was conducted using records available online through the Clark County Assessor, and these records provided information on architects, builders, and developers that were responsible for the initial design and construction of some of the residential properties and some of the, as well as construction dates. Unfortunately, not, all of the assessor records has all of that information. So it's kind of, it's missing some for some properties. Historic building permits that were on file with the City of Las Vegas were also consulted for some properties We were looking for original construction applications and modifications. And these searches were conducted mostly for properties that we thought might be individually eligible, so we were looking for permit applications for alterations. And we didn't, because this is a reconnaissance level survey, we did not look at building permit research and assessor records for all of the 1,500 plus homes. And then, of course, we consulted online records, Ancestry.com, HistoricAerials.com, and newspapers.com. So in summary, the Twin Lakes survey area is generally bounded by North Rancho Drive on the east, North Decatur Boulevard on the west, Vegas Drive on the north, and West Washington Avenue on the south. It's a pretty large area. The properties documented within the study area are located within 9 neighborhoods, and that's how we broke up the report. The developmental histories and the survey findings were for each neighborhood. There were several unplatted areas along the periphery, and each neighborhood consists of, well, most of the neighborhoods consist of like a larger number, a planned development containing multiple individual plats. There are a couple, like the Priory, that was one plat, and a couple of smaller ones that didn't have multiple plats. But the ones that had multiple plats, like say Twin Lakes Village, they share a developmental history. The neighborhoods include Twin Lakes Village, Twin Lakes Estates, Rancho Square, Twin Lakes Village 2, Twin Lakes Country Club Estates, Charleston Estates, Woodland Hills, the Priory, and K Las Vegas. And K Las Vegas, which we'll get into in a later slide, was a platted subdivision, but it only has one building on it. The number of properties within each neighborhood varies from more than 500 in the Twin Lakes Village neighborhood to just one in K Las Vegas. They were all built between 1946 and 1982, with the majority constructed in the 1950s. 99% of the properties were constructed as residential, while the remaining 1% were commercial, office, educational, and religious. We evaluated all historic age properties individually for listing in the National Register under Criterion A for its potential association with community planning and development in Northwest Las Vegas during the post-war period. Under Criterion B, we evaluated the properties for their association with the lives of significant persons. And under Criterion C for design and construction as a representative example of mid-20th century domestic architecture. And finally, under Criterion D for information potential. Based upon the results of the evaluation, Northwind did not recommend any properties as individually eligible under any criterion. Regarding historic district eligibility, Northwind found 2 of the 9 neighborhoods, Twin Lakes Village and Charleston Estates. They demonstrate adequate significance under National Register Criterion A under the theme of community planning and development. Twin Lakes Village was found to have historical significance for its role as the first residential housing tract in the Twin Lakes area, and the Charleston Estates neighborhood was found to have significance as an unusually large example of a residential subdivision constructed in the study area during the period of significance. Unfortunately, the majority of the residences in the neighborhoods have experienced significant alterations since they were initially constructed and can no longer be considered characteristic of the related developers' contributions to suburban development in Las Vegas during the period of significance. So neither district is recommended eligible for listing in the National Register. And one other thing that we encountered was that specifically with Twin Lakes Village, there was a previous survey that was conducted just right before ours, and I believe it was for NDOT, and they did the same survey area, but also east of Rancho. And so it was kind of difficult for us to make a complete finding on that particular subdivision because we don't have all of the information. So we didn't survey that other half. So there is potential for additional work to be done on that subdivision. So I'll share with you some of the interesting history, developmental history of the residences. So in the 1950s, this was the era of mass-produced suburban residential construction, especially because there was a post-war housing crisis. And so in order to kind of get these houses up quickly, there was a trend, starting in mass production. So a lot of prefabricated or pre-cut component parts facilitated the construction of these large developments in cities all over the country. And along with this came new materials like aluminum and plastic, and these were used in countertops and flooring and carport enclosures, and builders in the Twin Lakes area were quick to adopt this industrialized building practice, and they offered packaged heating and cooling systems, aluminum windows, prefabricated plumbing, and like complete kitchens that would just plop into these homes, such as the GE Wonder Kitchen. The layout of all the residential developments within the current study area adhered to the neighborhood unit approach, with West Washington Avenue serving as the primary transportation corridor. Curving streets were integral to the early track design. They limited sight distance so that motorists could drive more slowly through the residential areas, and there were other traffic control devices instituted, such as cul-de-sacs and loop streets. And so these kind of discouraged all but local traffic, and they reduced vehicle speed and prevented vehicle crashes. This era also saw the rise of a new type of developer called the merchant builder, and this type of builder was responsible for all aspects of tract development. So land acquisition, installation of streets and utilities, construction and sale of individual houses, and the team concept involved a group of dedicated specialists who worked in only one area. So you had, the financing person, marketing person, consumer research, accounting, land and site planning, engineering, architecture, and so on, and they were all led by the principal builder. Other merchant builders planned for the inclusion of shopping centers, schools, and civic buildings within each tract, and these types of builders were referred to as community builders. And this is apparent in the Twin Lakes area because there are large developments that they reserved vacant areas within a housing tract for school construction, and they also, made sure that they were by commercial areas like Rancho was a pretty big commercial corridor. Another key component in the growth of industrialized home construction was the emphasis on marketing and the use of trained salesmen to demonstrate the value of each development. So this is where the term curb appeal gained popularity, and it highlighted the importance of the whole package: architecture, landscaping, and environment on consumer preferences. And now you're starting to see model homes that are fully furnished. Often you would have people staged in the homes, showing off your kitchen technology, and this was reflected in the Twin Lakes area where these large corporate builders employed state-of-the-art marketing techniques. And kind of typical to the region and Southwest and other areas of the United States, 97 of the properties are considered ranch style or a variation of ranch. The ranch style was ideally suited to large families and growing incomes of this period. The style originated in Southern California in the mid-1930s, and it peaked in popularity for domestic architecture during the 50s and 60s. Ranch-style homes usually feature a broad one-story shape, a low-pitched roof with a wide eave overhang, off-center front entry, large picture window, and usually an attached carport or a garage. Roofs were a variety of forms, including side and cross-gabled, hipped and cross-hipped, and a variety of all of the above. The ranch style's popularity was largely due to its general acceptance by major FHA mortgage lenders during the mid-20th century. And we've seen that too, the influence of FHA practices on earlier subdivisions within Las Vegas, like the Huntridge neighborhood, and a little bit in John S. Park, and so on. The uniformity of these FHA-influenced subdivisions required the use of several different floor plans and variation in architectural elements, because you're basically taking an L-shaped plan or a rectangle plan, and you have to kind of provide some variety to it. Otherwise, you're just going to have the exact same house kind of, cookie cut throughout the whole development. And that's seen in Twin Lakes. So you have, the exterior of each house generally has, the majority of it is mostly stucco. However, some builders allowed the homeowners to customize the property with a stone or a brick veneer or some wood detailing. The roofs were most often clad in wood shingle, and there's just a couple of those left in the development. White rocks were also popular, and asphalt shingle roofing, or rolled asphalt roofing. In the 1970s, the styled ranches became increasingly popular in the Twin Lakes area and across the Southwest. The styled ranches in the study area include characteristics of early architectural styles like Spanish, Colonial Revival, Tudor, and New Traditional. And the images on the slide show examples of the most common styles within the study area, including the basic ranch house with an L-shaped plan and cross-hipped roof at 917 Artesia Way, which is on the top left. A common alteration visible here is the enclosed garage. 3800 Apache Lane is an example of a ranch home with a U-shaped plan, cross gable on hip roof, decorative details on the garage door and at windows. And these details varied throughout the study area and are an example of, again, how builders tried to provide some variety on these homes. Decorative elements on other homes included the faux half timbering at the gable ends and garage walls to reflect a Tudor influence, as seen on 404 Horn Street. The same house shape without the half timbering was used in the study area and was considered Colonial Revival. So again, exact same house, just put some faux half timbering and now it's Tudor inspired. The Tudor Ranch is primarily seen in the Charleston Estates and Woodland Hills tracts, with one in the Priory tract. There are only 11 examples of contemporary ranch homes within the study area. These are primarily seen in the Charleston Estates and Twin Lakes Country Club estates. These are typically represented by a single large gable, often with an enclosed entry courtyard with a skylight and exposed beams. 812 Hogan Drive, which is on the far right, upper right, exhibits some of the common alterations to this style. The garage would be infilled and the entry courtyard would be enclosed. Several houses in the Twin Lakes area demonstrate characteristics of the storybook ranch style, which is also seen throughout the broader downtown area neighborhoods as well. This style it embodies whimsical detailing such as diamond pane windows, small gables over windows, knee brackets, exposed rafter tails, and scallop trim. And the example we have here is 609 West Valley View Boulevard. The home is basically L-shaped with the garage making up the L. However, one additional gable over the boxed window and some stone accents and scallop trim, and voila, you have a storybook ranch home. Common alterations to this style include the removal of the scallop trim and exterior sidings. The tri-level ranch as seen at 816 Hogan Drive was not as common as other styles in the study area, and it was considered higher end. These homes had a different massing than the one-story models, but they retained the same palette of exterior finishes, and this style only exists in the Charleston Heights neighborhood. These homes tend to retain their garages more frequently, but often have removed siding and other decorative elements. The Spanish ranch homes within the study area had one common element, and it was an arched porch opening, or an arch somewhere on the facade, either in the porch openings, the faux arches over windows, or a single decorative arch which might be attached perpendicular to the garage. So you come around, and that's part of your entry progression to the front door. The Spanish ranch style home at 616 Starks Drive also exhibits some decorative wood detailing on the garage that matches the profile of the arches. This style was seen throughout the study area, and common alterations to this style are removal of the exterior sidings and decorative elements and garage infill. So maybe you're seeing a pattern. A lot of people filled in their garages and carports and removed some of these decorations, which the decorations were kind of interesting because they weren't all exactly the same. So they didn't just employ one decorative, shape or element on a garage like every 4 or 5 houses. They were kind of different as you went through the different subdivisions, but they were seen throughout all of the subdivisions. 712 Langtree Drive is one of the 4 examples of the new traditional style home constructed in the late 1960s and again seen only in the Charleston Estates neighborhood. And this home exhibits Italian Renaissance elements such as the coining on the corners, monumental entry with a full height decorative arched feature, and alterations to these homes include removal of trim features. So typical alterations to the homes throughout the study area include garage and carport infill, removal of sidings, decorative exterior features, and stone or brick veneers, removal of original roofing material, and window replacement. I think just, the shake roof didn't last very long in this climate. So on to commercial properties. There were only 13 commercial properties within the study area, There were some that were converted homes to commercial, but these 13 were originally constructed for commercial. And they consist of a bank, office, retail, restaurant, car dealership, and government offices. For the most part, these properties are located on the periphery of Twin Lakes study area and are situated along major thoroughfares such as North Rancho Drive and North Decatur Boulevard. There's a small cluster on Belrose Street in the southeastern portion of the study area. Most of those are being used now for state offices and various, there's an office that's been converted to a church. Commercial properties in the study area are primarily built in a plain utilitarian style. They have a basic storefront and little architectural decoration. Most have been altered to the point where the original style is no longer discernible. And a notable exception includes 1549 North Rancho, which is pictured here. This embodies characteristics of the modern style, which is the flat roof canopy, masonry construction, and the use of native stone on the building's exterior. There were 3 schools within the study area, including Western High School, Robert O. Gibson Leadership Academy, and Ruth Fife Elementary. All 3 were constructed between 1961 and 66, and they typically embody characteristics of the late modern and modern architectural styles. Elements of the modern style include the flat and folded plate roofs, asymmetry, minimal exterior ornamentation, the use of stacked concrete block on the exterior, and this is all seen on the Ruth Fife Elementary. Elements of the late modern style are similar to the modern style, but there's more of an emphasis on structural elements and repetition of decorative features, and this is seen in the repeated pebble dash stone panels on the original 1961 portion of Western High School, which is at 4701 Bonanza Road. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
First, thank you. Questions, comments?
I have a couple. Commissioner Roberts, great job, very, very detailed, and I was reading through the vast majority of it in detail, and then I started skimming. Ran out of time here. A couple questions, just for clarification. The subdivisions, I was just wondering, like K Las Vegas and, well, specifically that one, what is the name? What's the origination of that name? Like, was that just an old, like, designation on the plat map? Oh, Kmart.
Yep.
Oh, all right, that's, okay, interesting, thank you. And then, when you were talking about the other side, the east side of Rancho, is that also Twin Lakes Village? It was just developed on that side?
Yes.
I'm just curious why that wasn't included in this review. Do we know?
Well, that was the question I had. There are 2 areas. You mentioned one that's on the subdivision goes across Rancho, but then there's also a subdivision on the south side of Lorenzi Park between, it's shown on your first map that you had. Oh, I think it's that one that's right above Charleston Estates.
Prior why?
And the question I had, which kind of ties into what you're suggesting, Commissioner, is this is all not Twin Lakes Village. These homes were built, I think, over a period of 40 years, this area. And is there a reason why the city, the biggest one is, of course, the one you pointed out, why that triangle on the, of that whole subdivision is not included? And then the second one is why that neighborhood up there on the west side of Charleston Estates and on the south side of Lorenzi, why these weren't included in that whole, can you see any physical reason or any, well, of course you didn't go through those neighborhoods, so you wouldn't.
You mean the one that's like just west of Charleston Estates?
Yes.
I am not sure. It might not have been, they might have been constructed after 1982. That one I'm not 100% sure about. But I can.
Yeah, it would seem that if we're going to call something Twin Lakes, we would look for those things that are attached to the Twin Lakes. But I mean, maybe there's a reason why the city left those areas out.
Statement for the record, so we were going by years of the house construction, and they did fall out of it, and this was, we did expand this to go through 1982. I believe there was a discussion within this commission about going up to that year to gather information for potential future eligibility to see how they looked now, and this is already a very large area, and we didn't really need to expand it more. But it mainly went by year. That's how we determined the boundaries.
Well, what about the, I don't want to...
Oh, the Twin Lakes, sorry. Yes, Twin Lakes. It's Twin Lakes and surrounding areas. We just called it Twin Lakes for the purpose of the grant.
Oh, I think it makes sense. I mean, that's a good, you know, for that area. It's just that those two pieces, the one that next to it, and then why we cut the subdivision in half and didn't include it.
It fell outside the years that we were looking at.
The one across from Rancho? Really?
No, that's different.
Yeah, no, that triangle one that's on north of Rancho, or excuse me, east. Is there a reason why we left that out? Because it's part of the same subdivision.
I honestly don't know.
Okay. Further questions? Daniel, we'll go to this side, please.
Yes, so Commissioner Roberts again for the record. Also, I noticed that there's a few similar architectural layouts as well as floor plans that seem to coincide with other neighborhoods, maybe a little further east. I identified, I think it was the Contemporary Ranch and the Tri-Level Ranch, similar with Crestwood and buildings in Charleston Heights neighborhood. Did you see any overlap? I don't know, in experience with other stuff, is it the same builder or maybe the same plans used or floor plans that you identified?
It's possible that one of the major builders, Sprawl, has done buildings all over Las Vegas. So you might see buildings that are similar to these all over Las Vegas.
Okay.
But we did kind of notice there was some overlap in the developers. You know, they might, Sprawl and somebody else, you know, might work on this and then they trade partners and go do another development. So there was a little bit of that going on, but and that was interesting to us too, because you would think that with each developer, you would find very specific housing styles, and they'd be very different than the others. You know, they're, I guess, technically they're competition, but we did not see that. There's elements, with just a very few exceptions, there are elements of these styles throughout the whole area.
Thank you. One more question. I just wanted to clarify, did I hear correctly that 2 of the developments or of the subdivisions are eligible, or are none were eligible? So Charleston Estates and Twin Lakes Village, they were called out separately on what accord?
They met the significance requirements.
Gotcha, okay.
And those requirements are kind of vague, if any of you have experience with the National Register. So, and one of them literally is if it's unusually large. And again,
Okay.
that was the Charleston Estates was a pretty big one. But we did also, one thing I neglected to mention in this, in my presentation is that Charleston Estates, as well as the Twin Lakes Estates, Twin Lakes Village 2, and the Rancho Square, all down at that bottom, were impacted by the freeway construction. So
yes.
quite a few of them lost the whole southern part of their
Sure.
subdivision.
So just in follow-up to that, and this is my last question, I think I saw at one of the first subdivisions that you identified in your report that there were a few specific properties identified to be individually eligible. Is that correct, or no? None.
No.
So if, I'm just trying to think of how we could go about, or how individual eligibility could be identified, given the fact that we can't, if the recommendation is that we can't do an entire overlay district for preservation purposes, is there anything that you could suggest that we could do to identify and maybe outreach to these homeowners for individual listing?
So one of the troubles, or challenges, I should say, that we faced which is really fundamental to a reconnaissance level survey, is that you're not doing that deep dive into these homes.
Okay.
And so the standards for individual eligibility they're much higher than for contributing and non-contributing in a district.
Okay.
And in order to determine if a home is individually eligible, you have to do all the background research, all the permit research. You dig into the prior owners to see if it's eligible under criterion B for, associated with the individual that's significant to Las Vegas's history. And then again, the permit research to just verify whether or not there have been changes and alterations. And so since that's not really part of a reconnaissance level survey, we're looking at, we did some, like I mentioned in the beginning, a little bit of research on some of these homes that we thought might be. And we just didn't find any connection to a person, or, the style wasn't any different than, anything else that's in the neighborhood. So the only way to really move forward with that is to kind of maybe take a neighborhood that has a high concentration of contributing properties and maybe do a dig into, some additional work to dig into some of those individual properties that are contributing.
So in your personal opinion, would you think that it would be better to try and do that research before trying to provide outreach to the owners to see if they had interest? Or it's just a personal opinion? Do you think one would be more efficient, one approach would be more efficient than the other?
I'm always in favor of, involving the community as much as possible and seeing what they can bring to the table. We did have a meeting, a public meeting with, and we noticed everybody in this survey area, and I think we had about 4 or 5 people show up. So there wasn't this huge interest. Now, that doesn't mean that, another attempt wouldn't have a different result, but we just didn't find a lot of enthusiasm at that one meeting. I don't want that meeting to represent the level of everyone's enthusiasm, but it wasn't super well attended.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
I have Commissioner Perdue, and I have 3 questions. One is, I didn't quite hear you when you said why the Twin Lakes estates were excluded.
I don't know why the east half was not in the study area. We didn't determine the boundaries. What we did.
No, it's included in your study, but you said it was excluded from the historical designation for one reason or another, and I could not hear you.
Okay, so for Twin Lakes, there were a couple of things. The section that we surveyed on the west half had a really low rate of contributing properties. So most of the properties had been pretty altered. So it's hard for that neighborhood to convey its significance as a 1950s neighborhood when, there's been so many changes. And the other challenge was that in order to really make a full determination on that neighborhood, we would have to survey, or somebody would have to survey the other half as well. And we did not do that. So the NDOT report that we looked at, they determined that the whole area was not eligible as a historic district, but there were some comments back from the State Historic Preservation Office that, they were requesting some additional information on, to kind of back up their claims. So it's just a matter of, I think, someone putting our report and their report together to really take a look at this and potentially, because it's the first one in the area, so I think, it might be worth a deeper dive.
Okay, my second question is, who was the builder of the original Lakes Village section?
That's a good question. Let me find that for you. Twin Lakes Village. It could be potentially, originally it was known as Hears Subdivision, Nevada 1, and Hears was, an individual named Hears was involved in that. It looks like it was mostly folks from the Hears family. There's quite a few: Harold, Virginia, Charles, Betty, Carol, and Evelyn Hears, and then Walter and Eva Roeder. It might take me a second to find the rest of them. It might just be Hears. I apologize, I don't know it right off the top of my head.
I know that Hears was a big builder at the time, and that was the original section. And my last question is, why was R.O. Gibson School not included in the three that you named? Which is on Washington, just beyond the Twin Lakes Country Club Estates.
So there was one school that was in the survey area that had actually been completely redone.
That has been what?
It had been rebuilt. There was nothing left from the original.
That
Oh,
one?
Gibson was in here. The Western High School, Gibson, and Ruth Fife.
Okay.
Gibson has had quite a few alterations. The whole, I recall now, the whole front was added onto sometime in the 80s, I believe, and then there were several alterations that kind of, it looked like it had been originally developed in these sort of long rectangular sections, and then it was all filled in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further question? Please.
Yes. Commissioner Beck, were there two neighborhoods that you said when the majority of the buildings reached the age threshold that they could be looked at again? I know on the priority it says that. It says...
Oh, Priory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there another one besides that? It's okay if there isn't. Courtney, my question really relates to what it says here. The recommendation is it should be reevaluated in its entirety as a historic district when a majority of the properties in the neighborhood reach 50 years of age. Well, when I got to that point, I wanted to know, what year will that be?
I think these were 79. I think they were built in 79.
So I guess my recommendation is that it would be good to include that so that when you're reading it, you know when it would be appropriate to reevaluate.
Okay. There is in the developmental history, it's 78, I'm sorry. The heading for the developmental history has the year that it was platted, and that was 1978.
So we're looking at 2028. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just recommend including that so the reader can see where we are.
Other question? Please.
Commissioner Laramie, so I have a couple questions as well. One question, and this may be directed at Diane, I'm not really sure, but I understand the recommendations as far as not finding eligibility for the national and state historic districts, but then for the recommendations for the local register, it seemed to be that the qualifier given in the report was just because they weren't eligible for the national or the state. And my understanding of our local ordinance was that wasn't necessarily a requirement, a threshold that you had to meet, that it was a little less strict. So I'm wondering if you can elaborate on why you don't think any of these districts could meet the local significant standards.
They've just had so many alterations. I mean, they're not a consistent district, and I believe that was one of the requirements in the city code, was that they had to represent basically be intact, somewhat intact, and they're just not, unfortunately.
Yeah, is that still true though? I think there was maybe 2 or 3 neighborhoods that had a majority of, quote, contributing properties, but weren't necessarily found to be significant under criterion A. So I guess I was reading that as those neighborhoods did potentially have enough intact contributing properties, and could those, potentially be eligible for the local register through, a different lens.
We can certainly take another look at those. It might be that, like, for example, and again, I'm sorry, I don't recall off the top of my head which ones those are, but if you have a majority of contributing properties, but the bottom chunk of your district or of the development was cut off by the freeway, that really impacts, the integrity of that district. So there might be other factors that have gone into that, and so we can certainly take a look at those and maybe provide a little bit more explanation.
Okay, that would be helpful, I think. And then another question, I am just personally really in love with all the styled ranches in this area. And I was wondering about the potential, and I don't know a lot about this, like a non-contiguous district potentially of, the styled ranches. I don't know how prevalent those are in, other areas of the city, but there seems to be a really, kind of large concentration here, and could that potentially be a recommendation?
It could be. Unfortunately, so many of those are also not intact, so I don't know. I think it would be more of like a multiple property type nomination, and it's just that they just aren't really intact, and also the not that it's. This is not against a multiple property, but there are quite a few. I think if you go down Oakey, and I don't know exactly the name of the subdivision, but if you go east on Oakey, as you start to go down the hill, there are a ton of storybook ranches over there. There's quite a few all over Las Vegas, and again, it might be the same builder. I'm not sure, but we could certainly look into that recommendation and see if these homes are, maybe do a quick, just take a look at them and see if, if most of them are contributing or not, and take a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even, if that ends up just maybe being more appropriate for if additional research is needed, kind of part of that recommendation of, what other information would we need to explore those other types of avenues.
Okay.
And then just two comments then as well. You kind of touched on this, and it wasn't really in the report, but I do think it's important to add kind of the impact of the freeway construction. I don't know if that came before or after the demographic shift of the neighborhood, but I think, it's important to kind of tie those pieces together and discuss that history if it's there. And then also just kind of, hearing about the neighborhood meeting, and I know, from reading the report, you discussed that there has been a demographic change and that there's a large Hispanic population over there now, so future outreach just may need to be more strategic in how we do, language appropriate and cultural outreach there. There may be other methods to reach those homeowners than, just a public meeting.
Yep, good point.
But thank you. Great report.
You're welcome.
I loved it, of course.
Commissioner Beck, I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Laramie's comment. It turned out I had an area marked in here, and that is when it says that, where is this? For the priority neighborhood, do not meet criteria for designation as an individual property in the city's HPRs. The homes do not meet the criteria for listing in the state or national register of historic places, and were determined not to go under consideration G, basically. What I didn't understand, and I know I didn't read every page, but is that I think there might need to be more emphasis on the fact that these homes are missing integrity. And even in there, it might be a good thing to mention, because that seems to be what the real problem is with looking at them as eligible districts. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. A couple of quick questions. I sent in my notes on the historic context, some opportunities there. Just as an FYI, whenever I read a historical context or a book that calls Las Vegas a whistle stop, it never was a whistle stop. That's a very specific, we had a very large depot and we were never a whistle stop, but that's beside the point. On this document, I enjoyed reading it, and then driving through the neighborhoods is a dangerous thing to do. I should park, and I finally parked and walked a bit of the neighborhood. You can't read and drive at the same time. A couple of quick questions. First, to Commissioner Laramie. In fact, the 19.10.150 says that an individual landmark, district, site, building, or structure may be designated on the city's Las Vegas Historic Register if it demonstrates A or B. And A, if it meets the criteria for listing on the state or national register, or B, if it's determined to be of exceptional local significance and expresses a distinctive character because of, and then it lists a couple of things. So it's not because it doesn't meet state or national or state, that's not an eraser. The opportunity, if it meets local. And it seemed to me that there were a few things that you mentioned that were really kind of unique to this area. And I know we went through something a few years ago that it's not just the architect of a building, it's also what took place in that building and the time period and this seems to be an area that several that maybe not clearly the whole place. It was started in 1946, and I think in 1982 is the outside. There's some unique elements that really reflect that time period, but if it doesn't match, then that's what you're there for. I did have one other question. In reading this and realizing it was starting in 1946, I think we should address in these documents whether or not you have uncovered, you meaning the consultants, have discovered any restrictions on the sale of homes to minorities, or whether there was any restrictions at all in any of the. To me, that's an important part of the findings in these things. And again, it goes back to the 40s, late 40s, and there were clearly things that were going on there that are challenging. So those were really my comments.
I would just add that I think there were only two properties from 1946. I'd have to consult our spreadsheet. There were two holdover buildings, homes, and they were there right next to the golf course, and they're still there, and the subdivisions were built around them. Neither one of those were visible from the street. They were covered in trees and things. And then after that, then you have the Twin Lakes subdivision coming in 1954, I think. So those two, and again, because it's just a reconnaissance level survey, we didn't do all the deep research into those two individual homes. And we don't even know what they look like, to be honest. We have like pieces of them that you can see through the trees.
I found the report well done and very informative, and with hope that we could find something in there that we could represent the history of that time period. But thank you very much. Any further questions or comments?
No, just thank you very much. It's a nice
Let me
report.
just double check to make sure this is an action item.
Let's see, right for the record, yes, this is to approve the draft with, of course, the comments that will be given to the consultant for the second go-around.
Commissioner Laramie, I make a motion to approve.
Second, Commissioner Roberts.
We have a motion to approve. A further discussion by the commission? General public? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those on the
Aye.
telephone?
Hotchkiss votes aye on the phone.
And how many do we have on the telephone? Two? Just one? Two, okay.
Commissioner Modi votes aye.
All right.
Commissioner Hotchkiss votes aye.
Chair votes aye. We have a unanimous approval of those in attendance, if I'm correct. Okay, all right. Courtney, thank you very much, and you have your marching orders.
I do. I just want to say thank you so much for all your really thoughtful questions and comments. I think they're going to really, help improve the document, and I will see you all in January.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Courtney, do you want your laptop?
Let's move on to agenda item 9, 23-0545-HPC1, discussion for possible action regarding the approval of an application to designate the property known as Tract 3 Huntridge Home, located at 1425 Francis Avenue on the city's historic register property. Dr. Seabrand?
So, Seabrand, for the record, we did assist the applicant with his application, so I'll go ahead and give some of the findings that we found, and I'm here with the homeowner. Give your name.
Kelly Wallace.
So it was really great to hear the report. I'm up here. It was really great to hear the report from Courtney on discussing integrity of these residences that are in our older neighborhoods. And the Huntridge was surveyed several times, several years ago, in different tracts. This property, or this neighborhood, Tract 3 of Huntridge, was surveyed in 2014, a historic resources survey. And similar to the report we just heard, for the most part, nothing was eligible because of the major changes and alterations. However, that report did find that there were 3 specific residences within that neighborhood that were eligible for listing on the National Register as individual properties, and one of those is the 1425 Francis Avenue. So hopefully everybody read the backup, but I'll just summarize it. 1425 Francis Avenue, built in 1944. It was part of the Federal Housing Administration, or FHA, Title VI programming. That it is, the key characteristics are its minimal traditional style is applied to the houses erected in that subdivision. It's the small size, 1-story height, cross-gabled or cross-hipped roof forms, shallow eaves, lack of dormers, wood-framed double-hung windows, a minimal architecture detail, and in keeping with those FHA principles, the exterior materials are minimized in colors and textures. Is also consistent with FHA is the attached single bay carport, and this is the only house within that area that retains that feature. And the report found that this house was like I said, the minimal traditional style, and it retains its integrity of location, setting, feeling, and association. Again, going back to that 1940s FHA housing district. So that's the house itself. The image on your right is was taken on a site visit earlier this year. It's kind of hard to see with the tree, so I'll switch here for a second. But the image on your left is the house when it was originally constructed. And here's a few more images of the house that shows that it does retain, it does retain that original look. There have been a few changes. The removal of the air unit on the roof, the adding of some awnings, and this house was built during the time when there was the built up to the war, for World War II, and it was built for the war workers. And in the backup, you will see several images from newspaper clippings that show the advertisement of these homes for war workers. And there's only been 2 owners, the original owner and Miss Wallace, and the original owners were Kenneth and Madeline Eastman. They raised their family in that home. Mr. Eastman was a security guard at Basic Magnesium Plant. That supports the historical significance of the house, constructed for wartime workers. Also, their son David grew up in the house, attended the Huntridge Theater, went to the Jonas Park Elementary School, Las Vegas High School, and what we're finding is that this house is eligible for listing on our Las Vegas Historic Property Register, and that is because it embodies the distinctive characters of building, of its architecture and construction. It has great artistic value, again, because it's very unique within that neighborhood. It is, of course, more than 50 years old, so it does meet that criteria. Also, for the 1940s period of building and growth in response to the urgent demand to provide accommodations critical to the defense industry, and also because of the family that lived there and their association with the starting of that neighborhood is a reflection of Las Vegas's social past, of the everyday life experiences of the local community. And did you want to add anything or have any questions for Ms. Wallace as far as what the different changes and what has been done to the house?
I haven't changed anything on the outside except for the landscaping and the fence. It was a chain link fence when I moved in, but I changed it to picket, and then I added the white awnings, but the siding was already there. That was probably put on in like the 50s or 60s. But I haven't changed anything structurally. And the inside was pretty original. The kitchen, it has the original kitchen with like the blue tile counters and nothing was changed in there. And I've tried to maintain as much originality on the inside as I can. I actually retro renovated the bathroom because it had been kind of an ugly 80s, 90s mishmash, and I took it back to 50s tile. So I'm trying to keep it as original as possible. I specifically wanted a vintage house when I moved here, and finding one from the original owner was just like amazing to me. And I actually got this picture, the original picture, from the owner's son, because after I bought the house, I asked him, if he had pictures, and we've been in contact ever since. And yeah, it's just really cool to be only the second owner and, actually be able to talk to the people, even though the woman has died since then, but the son is still alive, and Diane talked to him too. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, we got a copy of the original deed too. Yeah.
I'll throw a comment in here, Commissioner Roberts, for the record. I think this is just the greatest thing. I love it so much. Thank you so much for all the work and for the work and effort and the willingness to put forth with this. I really want to see more of this, not only in our Huntridge neighborhood, but in all of the other neighborhoods. It's a really great report here. Diane, I assume this was you doing this. Great report. Lots of stuff I didn't even know. I learned a few things. And the old photos are obviously like always really cool, especially when you have the people in there and stuff. That's really great. So yeah, I mean, I just can't say enough good things about this. I think the other 2 properties that were identified there, I know both owners of those properties personally, and I think you both did such a great job on this one. I would encourage you to maybe reach out to those 2 other owners, and I have no problem assisting in that too. Maybe we can get those other 2 properties listed as well with their support. So thank you again.
Yeah, on that note, I just wanted to ask, I know we talked about how Huntridge as a whole didn't qualify as historic, but as they were saying, like maybe you can find little pockets of it, and since those 3 houses are all in this tract, maybe we could look again at that
even just the one tract, and maybe that could be something in the future. I don't know.
I think there are other opportunities. The Huntridge neighborhood is historic, end of story, and what you're doing, make sure that we don't forget that, and provides an opportunity. As the commission has said, there are a couple of other places as well, and that could lead to other things. Just a quick question out of left field. So you're about 2 blocks away from Huntridge Circle. What do you think needs to be done with that historic site?
The park?
Yes.
My personal opinion is that I would like it open with security, so in some way or another. So you can either have it open at certain hours with security, or you can just have planned, programming for it. It can't, as things stand, be just left open unattended all the time.
Right.
So I don't know how that would work.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's clearly an opportunity for that neighborhood to have that life put back into it somehow. So,
yeah.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Please.
Just one comment, because we've kind of been talking about other methods for preservation in some of these areas where, high integrity is difficult to find. I'm just going to boost my request to talk about conservation districts as a possible solution and something we could look at in the future. Thank you.
So, Dr. Seabrand, thank you for all your work on this, and thank you for as Commissioner Roberts said, for all the work that you, I likely would have covered up the garage area, but and I'm glad you didn't.
No, I like it like that.
We have, this is an action item regarding the approval of the application to designate the property known as Tract 3 Huntridge Home at 1425 Francis Avenue. Look for a motion.
Commissioner Roberts, I'm proud to motion for approval.
Commissioner Perdue seconds the motion.
We have a motion and we have a second. Further discussion of the commission? General public? All those in favor that are present in the commission chamber?
Aye.
Aye.
Those on the telephone?
Commissioner Hotchkiss votes aye.
Just for the record, both commissioners on the telephone voted aye, and the chair also votes aye. This is a unanimous approval of those in attendance. Thank you again for all the work, and look forward to the next step.
Me too. Thank you so much.
And Seabrand, for the record, just to let everybody know what the next step is, it does need to go to our Planning Commission for approval on January 9th, then City Council for final approval on February 21st.
Great.
Great. Thank you so much.
Let's move on to agenda item 1023-0546-HPC1. Discussion for possible action regarding approval of the final draft of the design guidelines for the designated historic districts located within the city of Las Vegas. Dr. Seabrand?
Thank you, Seabrand, for the record. So this, our design guidelines have gone through several reviews and comments and edits, and this is the final document. And I do see that Olivia is in the audience. She actually isn't here for this item, but if you wanted to say something, you are welcome to. I know Chair Stodel did give me some comments for some last-minute changes, but if there's nothing other than the last minute, just a couple tweaks, then we just need the approval for the final with, of course, those final comments being addressed.
And for the record, my comments, this to me is one of the most important documents that we have funded. I think it's going to definitely help preserve the two neighborhoods. The goal, my personal goal, the goal that I had going into this is making this document as user-friendly not necessarily for the contractor. The person that I had in my image was the owner of the home, that they could go through this and understand what the process is and what where the opportunities were. For example, I didn't know what the Garden City movement was. I had no idea what that meant, and I think most historic preservationists probably would have an understanding of what that is. Now that I know what it is, just by simply under the Wikipedia version of what a Garden City movement is, I have a better understanding of that. Oh, okay, that's what it is. But I think those things need to be as clear as possible in this document. So those were my comments that I submitted, just to make this, any opportunity we had to make this user-friendly. But it's really a very strong, strong document as we move forward. So unless there are other comments, we would look for a motion to approve.
Commissioner Surface, I'll make a motion to approve, and great job.
Commissioner Laramie, I second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor in the commission chambers, please say aye.
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 Those on the telephone?
Commissioner Moody, aye.
Commissioner Hotchkiss, aye.
Thank you. The chair votes in favor. The motion carries unanimously with all those in attendance. And again, thank you to another great job. And I think it's really going to help move things forward to the next community as well as the existing communities. So we will move on to agenda. I don't want to go on. Would you like to say anything? No? Okay. All right. Let's move on then to agenda item number 11, which is 23-0547-HPC1, discussion for possible action regarding approval of the funding in the amount of $29,800 in order to hire environmental consultants to complete an updated National Register of Historic Places for the Las Vegas Old Fort. This, by the way, was the very first property in the city of Las Vegas that received the nomination. I just bumped into that little tidbit, so it's and that was back many years ago, so it's great to have this updated. Dr. Seabrand?
Thank you, Seabrand, for the record. So this was a request by Chairman Stortle to update this nomination that was written in the 70s, which is really maybe 3 pages long. It's not very well documented. At the time, it sufficed to put it on the register. And because there has been so much buildup around the Old Mormon Fort, there have been changes, obviously, since the late 70s to the Old Mormon Fort that it did require a updated for the National Register nomination. And we have reached out to Katz Environmental, who provided the proposal that is part of your backup, in order to, they're basically redoing the entire nomination. I mean, they will take what is existing within the 1970s document, but obviously embellishing on it. And the one thing they are going to do, which is very important, is an archaeological survey of those grounds. That's included as part of this, their work. And so soon as, because this is our funding, we are not reliant on any federal or state deadlines or grants, that we can start this as soon as possible, if it is approved.
Just as a quick FYI, there is an archaeological study that was done on the old fort. I think it's about 2 or 3 volumes thick. And then secondly, I would certainly hope that they would talk to the authoress of a book on the Old Mormon Fort. I think it's now in its 2nd volume. Covers the history of the fort all the way up to current times, and she is really an expert and knows where where the facts are and where documents are, as well as the foundation itself. So that's wonderful. Well, this is an action item for the discussion. Please.
I was very glad to see that this item has reached approving an amount to do it. I saw in some news program that, designs for what they're going to do to the catchment area, and immediately I wanted to know what's the impact going to be to the Mormon fort. So that's something we need to look into at some time, but getting this done will really help us with that discussion.
Well, that's part of the trigger. The fact that the realization in reading it that it's only, as Dr. Seabrand indicated, maybe 3 or 4 pages. Yes, satisfactory at that moment. It got onto the nomination, but there's just so much and then the challenge is what's going on with that whole area.
Exactly.
And the impact on the fort. It was recently put on a list of Preserve Nevada as an endangered site. So I think it's on our list as well.
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know. I really don't know. I'd have to look.
Please, questions at this end? Any other questions? Oh, saw the microphone on.
I got one. Commissioner Roberts, for the record, I was trying to find out, Dr. Seabrand, you said there was going to be an archaeological study. I thought I saw somewhere, and this might have been on another item, but what's the extent of that? Is it just going to be a surface scratching, or is it going to be an actual dig?
They're not going to do an excavation now.
Okay.
And yes, the fort is on our list. Thank you, Teresa.
All right. Thank you. Look for a motion.
Commissioner Perdue, so move.
Commissioner Laramie.
Commissioner Hotchkiss, seconds.
Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. Further discussion? General public? All those in favor in the commission chambers, please say aye.
Aye.
Those on the telephone?
Commissioner Modi, aye.
Commissioner Hotchkiss, aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously with those in attendance and the chair voting in favor. Again, Dr. Seabrand, thank you for moving this along. Move on to agenda item 13.
12.
I'm going to do 12 first. (25-0548-HPC1) discussion with possible action regarding approval of funding in the amount of $8,920 to hire a consultant to amend and update the historic West Side School designation to the National Register of Historic Places. Dr. Seabrand.
Thank you, Seabrand, for the record. And Olivia White, with that is contracted with Chattel, is here to answer questions if you do have any. So this is, again, another request from Chairman Stodel to update the National Register for the school. Now, there was an update in 2015, so it doesn't require as extensive work as the Old Mormon Fort nomination. But since then, there again has been changes to the school, and there needs to be some corrections to the historic context part of the nomination. And Chattel Incorporated have submitted a proposal in order to make those updates.
Pretty straightforward. Any questions of the commission? If not, look for a motion to approve.
Commissioner Laramie, I motion to approve.
Further discussion? General public? All those in favor in the commission chambers, please say aye.
Aye.
Those on the telephone?
Commissioner Modi, aye.
Commissioner Hotchkiss, aye.
Any opposed in commission chambers or on the phone? Motion carries unanimously with the chair voting in favor and those in attendance. Thank you, Dr. Seabrand, again for moving that along. I'm going to move to agenda item 13, which is 23-0549-HPC1. This is a report by the Community Development Department regarding a Section 106 review for the proposed street improvement project of Rancho Drive between Rainbow Boulevard and Mesquite Avenue. There's more details, the purpose and the background, plus a report of many pages. Dr. Seabrand?
Seabrand for the record. Yes, it is a lot of pages, but a lot of them are maps and tables. So this is actually the NDOT program that Courtney had mentioned. This is their report that NDOT has done for Rancho Boulevard. And this, again, it's a 106 review. This is not a action item. This is the opportunity for members of the commission to review and comment on the 106 review and get your comments back to me, and I will send them to NDOT. And once NDOT has all of the comments back, then they need to go to SHPO for final review.
Two questions from the chair. One is I know under the CLG that the commission does have the opportunity to look at 106 reviews, but normally they're on a pretty straightforward level and are handled by the officer. Why did this particular one come to us?
Because, well, first of all, SHPO was interested in the commission's comments.
Okay.
And also because it is a very large project, and this project does entail removing houses from along Rancho Boulevard.
And the deadline for the comments to you? Next Monday, I know, but...
So I put on here November 6th,
Okay.
if possible. I understand that there's a lot to read and everybody has, other things to do. But the sooner that we can get everything back to NDOT, then they will be able to get it to SHPO for their comments.
And just a straightforward comment without any editorial. This is done by WSP USA Incorporated, a national firm that focuses on transportation and development, not on historic preservation. And this comes from the Nevada Department of Transportation, not the Nevada Department of Historic Preservation.
Commissioner Beck?
Yes.
I have a question on procedure. So do these 106 reviews come through you, Diane? The Community Development Department, or do they act independently and interact with you? I remember this has been confusing.
So I get 106 reviews if the federal agency sends them to me.
Okay. So in the case of a state project like this, they don't have to send it to you?
Well, no, they have been working with our Public Works Department on this.
Okay.
So I was included in this already as far as this, but if you're asking generally about if 106 reviews come in, almost every 106 review I get is to put up a cell phone tower. So this is the first large one that we've had like this.
Okay, thank you.
But along that same, every 106 that's involved the city comes through your office.
If it's sent to me, yes. So it's dependent upon the organization that is doing the work to send it out. They send it out to all municipalities for comments before it goes to SHPO. So I don't actively seek out 106 reviews. They come to me, and if they come to me is when I review them, and if there's something big like that, they would come to the HPC.
And again, if this sounds argumentative, it's not meant to be. I just want to understand the process. Any project that the city is using federal funding that involves the city, not the state, but the city that involves federal funding, and a 106 is required, that has to go through you.
Yes, it does, and we do have several reports that come through, but again, they're very small reports. That's usually for HUD housing money, and it's to put an air conditioning on a house in a non-historic area.
Okay.
Commissioner Purdue, my bearings are a little off. Rancho Drive, Rainbow Boulevard, which runs north and south, and Mesquite Avenue, which runs east and west, and I didn't quite see the overlap there.
If you look at the backup, there's the map on page 3 that, I mean, it's a pretty busy map, but if you see that green line there, that shows the boundaries.
Okay, I will look at that more carefully.
Commissioner Beck, at the top, Rainbow cuts across because it's on an angle, and then Rainbow's
I know.
north. But
Rainbow goes this way, Mesquite goes this way, and Rancho goes that way.
Right, but it's at an angle, and so you can go up it, and there's a rainbow. It breaks for a little bit, and then it's on the east side of the road.
I'll look at that carefully.
So again, get any thoughts, any comments, any questions to Dr. Seabrand. And then does the city send a letter, an official letter, like from the mayor or the city manager saying, we approve this project, or we approve this?
Well, we don't approve it, we give our comments on it, and then our comments are given to the consultants, and then those are taken to SHPO, and SHPO takes our comments into consideration.
Our meaning, the mayor and city council?
Well, no, I'm sorry, no, this doesn't go to the mayor or city manager's office.
Oh, okay,
No.
okay. Keep it a secret from the mayor. All right, further questions? This is not an action item. Dan, Commissioner?
Yes, Commissioner Roberts. Another kind of follow-up question or clarification regarding the Section 106 review. Is this has a review been commenced? Is that essentially it has started?
This is the start of it.
This is the start of it. And follow-up, just for clarification, once a Section 106 review has begun, are there any limitations to it or requirements moving forward, or can it be abandoned at any time?
Can a 106 review be abandoned?
Right, or is there a commitment that is?
No, I mean, if the project doesn't move forward, then they could stop the review, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move on then to agenda item 14. 23-0553-HPC1, report by the Community Development Department regarding a request from the Nevada Department of Transportation to review a National Register of Historic Places multiple property documentation form and associated National Register of Historic Places nomination for the Culinary Union 226 headquarters. That building is located at 1630 South Commerce Street. Questions?
Commissioner Beck, I'm not sure how I understand NDOT ended up as a lead on this.
Thank you.
Okay, so Seabrand for the record. So this goes back in February 2020 to Nevada Department of Transportation reached out to the community for a statewide Latino Latinx multi-property documentation form. And just coincidentally, this came out about the same time that our Rafael Rivera survey was starting. So kind of overlapping a bit as far as like we have with the Twin Lakes and surrounding area survey with the Rancho project. This project also has a bit of overlap with our Rafael Rivera project. And the NDOT was looking for a historic context for the Latino community within the Las Vegas, and well, actually Nevada. So what they did is they contacted me after they completed this. They submitted for us again to review before this goes to SHPO, the multi-property documentation form. And if nobody's looked at these before or unfamiliar with it, it's basically saying that it can be properties anywhere that meet the historic context in which is documented in this form. And again, this is for specifically the Latinx community. And from this multi-property documentation form, they are nominating the culinary building to the National Register because it relates to the Latino community in the context in which they have written it.
Thank you.
Couple of questions. One is, it seems to me there's two elements to it, and first is a real minor nitpicking, that this company does not know the difference between the city of Las Vegas and the Las Vegas DMA. Two distinct different places, and they use them interchangeably. They don't, so it's a minor point in one sense, but when I see that, it always is one of those little red lights to how many other issues are in there regarding that. It seems to me there are two elements. One is certainly the Hispanic community and the contributions and the history goes all the way back to whenever. But then the question is about the building itself. This is a 1996 building and doesn't fit the 40-year qualifications for the city of Las Vegas. Will this go before the Planning Commission or any other agency within the city other than the HPC?
No, it wouldn't, because it's for the National Register, and the only time something on our local register goes in front of the Planning Commission and City Council is because it falls under a municipal code Title 19-10-150. But when it's on the National Register, it's not beholden to our municipal code, so it does not get the H historic zoning. That's a layer on it like we do for our local register.
In your conversation, I know this, I understand what you said, that this is more or less sort of just dumped on you recently, or provided to you recently rather than dumped on, for the record. Did they give you any understanding why they selected this particular building?
They did not.
Okay, and you'd like our comments by?
If you could get them to us by November 13th, if you need a bit more time, just let me know.
Great, all right.
Because I do know that, especially the multi-property documentation, it's a very interesting read, but I understand it is a lot.
Okay, all right. Any further questions of the commission? And there is no general public here at this moment. So we will move on to the next item, which is 15, a report by the Community Development Department regarding the director's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seth Floyd. I don't have any specific updates today, but I think I may be answering some questions as part of Diane's report, so I'll defer to her report, and if anything comes up there, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, nice to see you. Any questions from our? No, there is no questions about the report because there was no report. Item 16, report by the Community Development Department regarding the project update list. Dr. Seabrand.
So thank you. All right, thank you. So for our updates on our surveys, everything is in progress. The West Side School Alumni Book that was part of the West Side School Centennial Celebration has been completed, and we should have that report at the December meeting. Remember, we don't have a meeting in November, so nobody show up in November. Also for the our second bricks and mortar grant, the roof at 1100 South 6th Street has been completed. Again, we should have that report at the December meeting. And then from our National Park Service grant on the West Side Survey, part of that survey, of course, was a requirement to nominate something to the National Register. We nominated the Christensen House, and that will be on the December 7th and 8th Board of Museums and History SHPO meeting before it hopefully moves forward to the Keeper of the Register in Washington, D.C. This was just kind of a fun little tidbit. The 2023 Eldorado Parade won a prize from the International Festivals and Events Association Award. This was given to our Parks and Rec Department for their the running and handling of the parade, and I guess they break down the awards into how much parade's cost. So this was for a budget between $100,000 and $750,000. And it was an international award, so I think that's a great, pat on the back for us to have our El Dorado parade recognized. I attended a conference this weekend in Riverside, California. It was on the Old Spanish Trail Association, and they did open with land acknowledgement, and they had the local bird singers give a ceremony each day before we started the conference. There was very interesting presentations. They were mainly family focused, a lot of descendants of pioneers that had either traveled the trail or had built residences or some type of establishment on or near the trail. We're giving some really good presentations. Took us on some tours of some of those buildings that are still standing or partially standing. It was very interesting. Also did meet a gentleman by the name of Ashley Hall, who was apparently the city manager here in I believe the 1980s, and I think some of you know him. Very interesting gentleman. And so yeah, it was a really good conference, and thank you very much for the funding to attend. It was very beneficial, and depending on what happens with our report, if it's completed for the Old Mormon Fort, next year I may be able to give a presentation at this conference about our efforts in that regard. Well, before I get to this one, I did just want to say also and I just remembered this, on November 1st, City Council meeting, 700 Park Paseo will be attending for a review of conditions for the denial of the HPC's certificate of appropriateness for what they had submitted for the fence and the other items that they were building in their yard. So if anybody wants to attend November 1st City Council meeting.
Thanks, Abraham. Before you move to the next one,
yes.
To me, this was your attendance there was really the first step in doing more with recognizing the Old Spanish Trail. Of course, it cut right through the heart of Las Vegas. And I don't think that there's, maybe some other experts here, but there's anything left of the trail within the area. But it would be nice to be able to have an accurate plotting of the trail that through Southern Nevada and through the city of Las Vegas, at least, that we could fund it. Maybe it's something for the Centennial Commission. But this really did open up the southern part of what would become Nevada. I think we were still New Mexico. We were in 1829. We were still part of Mexico, and then New Mexico, and then Arizona, and of course, Las Vegas, Nevada we didn't become Nevada until 1867. We were not part of the original state. So there's just some good history that needs to be documented and updated, but I'm not sure what the next step would be to document the trail.
Commissioner Beck, I know that the BLM has done quite a bit of work on the trail, outside of the city.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we even lost a section that was up near Mountain Springs not that long ago, maybe 20 years ago, but that's probably long ago for some. But anyway, I'll just so you know, it'd be worth inquiring with them about that. And
okay.
I'm still in contact with someone who worked on that.
Can you contact?
Sure.
Okay.
And at least I could provide contacts to Diane to talk to from there.
Great.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to do some type of a map or a plotting. But yeah, Commissioner Beck, if you could please send me the contacts or introduce me to whoever it is would be able to help us with that, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, because Courtney mentioned there's a little slice of they were able to identify in that report. So.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Gillespie, for the record. I just wanted to add that, as a reminder, our next exhibit, the Nevada State Museum, will be on the Old Spanish Trail. We'll be probably not as thorough with the maps as we would like, but if we can get Bob to come do a previewing of the exhibit, it will help us look for a place where we might be able to add some things. But we'll have a number of artifacts from San Gabriel Mission, from places in southern Colorado, New Mexico, and Nevada, and hope to do some interesting programming around it, even including how to pack a mule. So just that we're looking to open that in next May before Memorial Day. So more to come. I know our history curator was also at the conference. He saw you briefly, and then he was down for the count with the flu, and so didn't get a chance to reconnect.
Good.
Thanks.
Great.
Commissioner Perdue, there is a and the name has left me now, the Benedict Arnold Trail in Massachusetts and goes up to Montreal, and it has a brochure and it has various markers, and you can drive off the path, but then you can be directed onto where particular sites where they may be set into the water, or where they had to take their boats and carry them upstream or across land. But we could do certainly something like that, I think, with the Old Spanish Trail, which would be quite interesting for people who are curious about the Southwest and the marvels that how they endured the heat and the desert when they came out here.
Okay, thank you. And so to finish up, and this is where Director Floyd may be jumping in, Commissioner Roberts had a question about the building, the old Frontier Bank building at 801 East Charleston Boulevard. This is an image of it. It's built 1962. The exterior is original, but the interior has been renovated. It's a mid-century modern design. Architects were Robert Hagman and Kurt Meyer. And like I said, it was a Frontier Fidelity Savings and Loan, Bank of America, U.S. Bank. So it has most currently been purchased. It's by the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, and they will be demolishing this building in order to build a Victims' Rights Center, Victims of Crime Center. And just to give you a couple images of the interior of what it looks like, you can see on the left is the bank lobby, and on the right is some of the back rooms. So, any questions?
I missed what year it was built in.
1962.
Thank you.
Question from this end? Any comment?
No.
It's
Excuse me.
It's still off the record. It's a nonprofit. I'm wondering, since we have no control over whether the building is going to be demolished or not demolished, but I would hope that they would allow somebody to go in and photograph and create some record of the because it is a unique set of architecture, and it also has the euphemistic term that I'll use, a very colorful history, the business itself. So great. Any further questions, comments?
Commissioner Roberts, I'm very upset about this. If anybody isn't aware about that, I personally fought to add this to our list of endangered properties. It's now on there. I feel that our list of endangered properties has turned into somewhat of a demolition list, predictive or directive. But this building is incredibly unique in its appearance, and its the historic significance of it is to be determined, because I'm not aware of any historic report that was, I'm not privy, I should say, to any historic report that has been conducted, but I am recently aware that one has been conducted. I would like to have the opportunity to review that report, and I think that report should be made public so that everyone else in the public is able to understand the significance of this building architecturally, culturally, and just generally historically. I don't believe that that this building needs to be demolished. I understand the ins and outs of private property ownership, and I'm not trying to fight that. But I believe that the City of Las Vegas, this commission, and several other entities could and should be required to do much more due diligence in preventing individual, unique, and culturally contributing properties such as this from being removed from our city. So I could go on at length about this, but I feel that this is a very, very big loss and a very, very huge miss.
Commissioner, one quick question, and I understand it clearly is unique. Who do you think did this report that you think exists?
I would defer to city staff to answer that question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Seth Floyd for the record. So I assume the report Mr. Roberts is referring to is a Section 106 review was initially started by Legal Aid. Our Neighborhood Services Department was in contact over that, and the reason for that 106 review was because there was some federal funding that Legal Aid was looking to use as part of its programming for the New Victims' Rights Center. They decided, at some point in that process, they decided not to move forward with that federal funding, and so it's just a partial draft of a Section 106 report. The reason why that wasn't released initially is because it was a draft, and we generally protect drafts of that type, but we talked with our city attorney and we're going to release that. I sent Mr. Roberts an email earlier today, so we'll get you, whatever was done, we'll get you a copy of that. There is, coincidentally, we met with, and I want to thank Legal Aid. They were very accommodating to let us, they invited us over, gave us a tour of their existing facility, let Diane take as many pictures as she wanted of the Pioneer Bank building. I don't know his title exactly, but he seemed like an operations manager of their facility, was an encyclopedia on a history of the building, and Diane has summarized what he sent over. We can provide that to the entire commission as well. I mean, he knew a lot of detail about the history of this building, I think some of which he got from the prior owner before Legal Aid purchased it. We were also able, as part of that conversation, to request that they maintain some of the architectural elements of the building in their new building. And one of the elements that they would like to maintain, although we haven't seen an entitlement package yet, is this, and I'll defer to Diane on what this is called, but this unique wall in the front, and I forget what that, it has a name, but I forget what it's called, but that architectural feature that's kind of makes the building unique is something they have reached out to their architect and some contractors to try and salvage and include that in the building. There's also some unique brickwork. You can't quite see it in this picture, but we talked about that as well. So I actually think at least a reference to this building is going to be included in the new design. We'll know more once we see their package. We haven't seen the official entitlement package yet, but I just wanted to give you that background because I do agree with Commissioner Roberts that this is a loss, but I think fortunately we were able to have that conversation before demolition and preserve what we can of the history of the building.
Are you able to, put some questions of the commission, were you able to get as many photographs of as you wanted? I mean, we really feel we got it covered. The other point is sometimes during the demolition process, things are also uncovered. I was wondering whether or not we could, I know you have just unlimited time, whether or not there's some way we could be part of that to record that as well in some fashion. What I'm trying to get at is I would like to have, that we would have a procedure when historic structures go down, that we're able to photograph what we have and then the process of it coming down. So I just to throw that out there.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that would be up to the owner, but they were very accommodating. I mean, they took us through the building. We did talk about whether there were any, one of the comments that Commissioner Roberts has mentioned is that there's sometimes some interior features of a building that might be historic. The gentleman we walked through with identified a couple of things although a lot of it's been replaced. They did a remodel, I can't remember, 10 or 15 years ago that I think wiped out some of that stuff, including, unfortunately, a mural that I think would have been nice to recover. But there is an old safe that they're trying to figure out how they can utilize or do something with, and although we walked into this safe, that's going to be a massive undertaking, but they were trying to figure out a way to incorporate that as well. So of all the property owners that I've met with, at least, they were very willing and interested in trying to preserve as much as possible of at least a reference to the building, if not actual elements of it.
Question?
Yeah, Commissioner Laramie, for the record, I'm wondering if other options have been pursued. I know that it can be costly and it's not an ideal preservation solution, but could this building be moved somewhere and moved to a different site rather than destroyed? I know, banks are particularly popular for adaptive reuse, and it could be that there is an economic solution for it elsewhere in the downtown area, which would certainly be better than it being destroyed outright.
Yeah, we didn't discuss that option with it. I mean, the building is pretty large. I don't know if that's possible. We could certainly ask, although I think because they want to use some of the elements, the brick and that architectural feature on the front, I'm not sure what of the rest of the building would be worth salvaging. It's interesting because the building looks pretty large. After we went inside, it's really, just an open space for most of it because the bank had a very tall ceiling on the interior, and so you can kind of see it there. It really is not a very large space internally, and there really isn't anything noteworthy on the interior. I think it's those external features that they are trying to incorporate that are really the most noteworthy, but we can certainly ask if that's something that's possible.
Yeah, I guess I just, while it's certainly, a great effort to reuse some of the pieces, I don't know if they're doing that as a compromise or as something that they're really, tied to. So if there was other solutions to preserve it, I don't know if there's been a structural study that could look at the feasibility of moving it, but I think those are options if they're willing to, allow a little bit of time to look into those, that they're worth pursuing. And I would certainly support some of our funding to fund some of those studies.
Has a date for demolition been, have they applied for a permit yet?
No, they've not applied for a demolition permit yet.
Did it give you any sense of?
I think they are still in the process of securing their funding.
Okay.
And when we had met with them, they had just opted to not use federal dollars because that was going to speed up their project. But I mean, at this point, they haven't asked for a pre-application meeting or submitted a demo permit, so I'm guessing at best they're going to start moving forward early next year.
And do they know that, obviously, with your attendance and Dr. Seabrandt there, that the HPC has an interest?
Yes, when we met with them, that was how we introduced ourselves, essentially, is, hey, we're interested in this building. And they had, Commissioner Laramie, to your point, the reason why I say this was a little unusual is they had already done a lot of this research on the history of the building before we even showed up. I mean, this wasn't us asking them to do it in advance of that meeting. They had it already done. So it was something that for whatever reason they were already interested in, and they went through their process of seeing if they could even use the building and reconfigure their design. The problem is it's just the space that they need was far exceeded what they could get out of this structure.
Okay. Doc, please.
Just a little more. First of all, Commissioner Laramie, thank you for that suggestion. I think it's a good one, though I think it's somewhat far-fetched. Being in the construction industry myself, it would probably prove to be not cost-effective, which is the reason that they're tearing this building down. I want to add a couple more aspects here. One, if a Section 106 review was initiated and then abandoned, I'm going to put forth a suggestion. It seems that the most likely reason for that is because the findings from that 106 review would not allow them to demolish this building. So I believe that it is an action that is.
Okay, again, that's an opinion, because there's some
This
other
is an
logical
opinion.
reasons.
This is absolutely an opinion, and it all goes back to money, and I understand that. This is a private property, and it is not currently listed on the register. I'm aware of
And
that.
potentially, they couldn't get 106 money, or federal money.
I believe that they could have, but that also is an opinion, and we won't know because the Section 106 review was not completed. I will also say that when it comes to the salvaging of materials and the demolition process, I could almost guarantee there will be absolutely no salvaging of the materials, even with the best of intent and all the words and promises. Demolition is done with large machinery, and it is not a small, slow surgical operation. It will be done quick, and we will know about it after the fact. I would love to be wrong. I would like, moving forward, to have this situation be considered as a learning curve for the City of Las Vegas and for the Historic Preservation Commission. I believe that this building should not be destroyed without any positive benefits from it. I think that this is a perfect example of why this commission and the City of Las Vegas needs to take a much more proactive approach into historic preservation, and we can't just sit back and wait for people to make decisions and then we come in after the fact asking for things that have already been decided against. So I'll just implore this commission and city staff and the rest of the City of Las Vegas that we stop talking about historic preservation and start doing more work on it. We need to fund more actions that will assist with the actual preservation of properties. And it's a very large ask, and it's a very complicated process, but it's not one that is not possible. I can list dozens and dozens of other cities in the United States, even within the Desert Southwest, that do a much better job and are much more proactive, with much better results. And those results are not only for the few that value historic preservation, such as the seated members on this commission and within city staff, but for heritage tourism and multiple other opportunities. It is not a financial loss for a city, it's a financial gain, and we need to start realizing that and acting accordingly.
Commissioner Beck?
Please.
I agree with what Commissioner Roberts has said, and we have faced this situation before, sadly. There was one thing I just wanted to talk about in process, because there's often a misconception on Section 106 that if a Section 106 report was done and the building was determined eligible to the National Register or even listed, it doesn't protect it. There's a process by which it can then be demolished, and I unfortunately have been involved in a number of those cases. I was disappointed the Section 106 stopped from the practical level, that had it been determined eligible, then recording of the building would have to be done at a high level and before it's demolished, which is usually the trade-off between demolishing it and whatever. I'm not recommending that here, but I just wanted to comment that it doesn't save the building necessarily.
Please.
Actually, I wanted to return to the 700 Park Paseo, so I can wait until we're done with this building, but I want to make sure we don't move off of this agenda topic, so I do have a quick question about that.
Other comments? The Chair has one last comment, and that is to thank Commissioner Daniel for your passion in bringing this forward to the full Commission's attention, and sometimes passion and energy can get confused, but the bottom line is it's important that the HPC understand that, understand what is going on with this building. My personal opinion, I have worked over the years, not recently, last 5 or 6 or 8 years, but in past decades with several of the people there, and I would agree that they would be understanding and easier to work with than lots of others. And third, I'd like to thank Dr. Seabrand and Seth for the meeting that was held and for sharing the information as we move forward. To me, it's been a landmark on East Charleston Boulevard for a long time. As a journalist, did several stories over the years on the management of that facility and the colorful things that took place. But its architecture has always stood out, including if you can turn to the original picture, the outside, is this sort of walkway that is just the foundation has a unique quality to it. But again, just ask that you can kind of keep us up to speed. We'll be doing some of our own homework. We really look forward to the two reports that you can send out. I think there's several members, the partial 106 and then the documents that they send over.
There's not two reports. There's just the partial 106 review, which, and I did want to thank Commissioner Beck for pointing out. I understand, again, Commissioner Roberts, your passion, but a 106 review would not, even if it finds that it's the area of impact, it's not going to save this building, unfortunately. And the 106 review gives a history of the building, but it does not determine if it's eligible or not. It's for the surrounding neighborhood.
No, but it shines a giant spotlight on it. And that's one of the. But Seth, I thought there was an indication that the gentleman over there.
Yeah, and maybe I shouldn't have called it a report. It's a summary of the history. It's a one-pager. I think I was calling it a report. Diane, it was only one page, so it can't possibly be a report. But we'll send both of those over.
Well, maybe it's printed on both sides of the one page. Thank you.
Can I just clarify something about the 106 review, and please correct me if I'm wrong. A 106 review would open a door to federal funding, correct?
No, what the 106 review does is that that is sent to SHPO, and SHPO can make a determination as far as if something is eligible or if they concur that it is eligible or not eligible, and they could recommend that it not be demolished, but they cannot require it.
I'm asking about the funding. If a 106 review was conducted, the building was considered historically significant under criteria A, B, C, or Z, it could be eligible for federal funding.
Only if the owner agrees to put it on the register.
And with that agreement, there would be stipulations and limitations, correct?
Well, now only if they receive a grant. So the federal funding pays for the 106 review, but if the owner agrees to put it on the National Register, and then it could still be torn down at any point in time, but if that owner accepts a federal grant, either from SHPO or from the National Park Service or any other federal funding, there would then be covenants on it like we have on Floydland Park, where yes, it could not be torn down, or would have to go through SHPO for that approval.
Understood. And am I correct that the current owners of the property there are seeking funding to help fill the gap to the tune of about $20 million? Is that correct?
I do not know.
Okay, I thought that was public.
Yeah, the question then is whether it's local or federal money, and okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, so, sorry. Commissioner Laramie, 700 Park Paseo. I just wanted to clarify, I guess, because I saw this agenda item come out, and the language used on the agenda item was really confusing, and said something, I'm sorry, I tried to look for it, but I can't find it now, about an approved appeal. And so was the certificate of appropriateness denial appealed, and was that approved?
So, Seth Floyd for the record, so the yes is the short answer. I realize the item is styled in a confusing way, so what happened, and Diane, jump in if I skip over a step, but this commission denied their certificate of appropriateness. Their remedy at that point was to appeal to City Council, which they did. The city council approved it, but with some conditions that they imposed at city council. I don't know all the detail of the conversations that have transpired since then, but they've culminated in the applicant, the homeowner, asking for the council to review one of those conditions. So that's why it's styled in such a confusing way, but it's the applicant coming back and asking for relief from one of the conditions that the council imposed on appeal from this board. Does that
Yes,
answer
that
it?
clarifies. Thank you. And Diane, can you just remind me again the date of that meeting?
So that will be on the November 1st City Council meeting. I do not know at what time because the agenda has not been published yet. But once it has been, you can either look online and everybody can access the agenda and the backup, or I can let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know what particular piece of business? Is it the fence or the whole front of the building that the city council said we'd like that changed, and now they're appealing part of that? Do we know what they're appealing?
So my understanding, again, I don't think that the confusion just is with the the board, is that they are appealing the time limit that was imposed by city council for, they were given 120 days to submit their permits, which they did not do.
Wow, gotcha. Thank you.
Quick question, is that coming to city, or to HPC, or is that just the city council?
No, it's just to city council because city council put the conditions on the appeal. So to review it, it has to go back to city council.
Do we expect that to come to HPC after?
No.
No? Okay.
City council has final say.
Let's move on then to Agenda 1723-0550-HPC1, report by Community Development Department regarding historic and archaeological resources in the local media. There are several there, including references to West Side School and the Huntridge Theater, which received lots of coverage. Questions, comments? If not, we'll go on to 18, discussion of topics regarding future agenda items. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to proposals for future agenda items, and any discussion should be limited as to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the Commission, and or whether or not such items should be placed on a future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any such proposed topic shall occur, and no action shall be taken. Is there anything we would like to see on a future agenda? This side? What would be the east side or south side of the room?
Commissioner Beck.
Please.
I would just like to ask if the National Register nomination for Floyd Lamb Park was ever updated to include the Adobe. Years ago, we had discussion about that.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. To include what?
The Adobe building.
It is part of the register, I believe.
Okay, because years ago it wasn't. I mean, and it was when Courtney was here, and there was an effort being made to get it put him into the register, and I just don't remember if it happened.
I will confirm that, but it's listed on the register, and it's like one of, I think it's even like number 2 or 3 that is listed as far as the contributing.
Okay.
I thought for sure it was, because whenever something is changed nearby it comes before us. But that does bring up, understand that Parks and Rec is doing a whole review of all the historic buildings there. I was wondering if it's possible to get an update on what their plans are or what their process is they're going to use to make sure.
You must have ESP, because they'll be at our meeting next year.
Next year?
Well, January.
Oh, okay, they're taking December off, all right. Further questions, comments? But, and also, we got some clarification on what are the historic, what things are on the register at Floyd Lamb, Thule Springs Park?
Yeah, we can present that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have something.
Please.
I guess I could have mentioned this during the resources and local media. I noticed that it wasn't on the list there. We recently conducted a survey, or we're underway of a historic West Side survey, and the Newtown Tavern burned down.
Yeah.
Newtown
I
Tavern
do
was-
want to point out, I'm sorry,
Please.
Commissioner Roberts, you have to understand that these reports are done almost a month in advance. So things that happened last week aren't going to be on our updates until, well, now December.
Please don't take that personally. It was not intended to be personal. It's just a fact that the town tavern has burned down.
Yeah, I thank you for mentioning it, and whether now's the place or back when we were doing the report, either way, it helps to alert the rest of the commissioners to things that, as Dr. Seabrand indicated, the last 2 or 3 weeks may not be in the report. So, agenda item 19, citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the commission. And for the record, there is no member of the general public that is in the audience. So we are adjourned. And thank you all. And good reading and good comments.